In 2025, the world watched in disbelief. Donald Trump, against all predictions, returned to the White House. His victory sent shockwaves across the globe, but nowhere was the impact felt more acutely than in Europe. The continent had grown accustomed to a more predictable, if not always agreeable, transatlantic relationship. Trump's return shattered this illusion, leaving Europeans grappling with a new reality. Many had hoped that Trump's first presidency was an anomaly. They believed that America, after a brief flirtation with populism, would return to its traditional role as a reliable ally. Trump's re-election shattered these hopes. It became clear that his brand of nationalist politics, with its America First rhetoric, was not a passing phase. It was here to stay. The initial reaction in European capitals was a mix of disbelief and dismay. Commentators struggled to make sense of the result, while politicians scrambled to formulate a response. The old certainties were gone, replaced by a sense of uncertainty and anxiety. The world, it seemed, had entered uncharted territory. The future of the transatlantic relationship, once considered a bedrock of global stability, was now shrouded in doubt. The shock of Trump's return, however, had an unexpected consequence. It served as a wake-up call for Europe. For years, the continent had been drifting along, complacent in its dependence on the United States. Trump's victory, with its clear message of American retrenchment, forced Europe to confront a difficult truth. It could no longer rely on Washington to solve its problems. Instead of succumbing to despair, however, Europe responded with a surge of unity and resolve. The threat posed by Trump's unpredictable foreign policy, coupled with his disdain for multilateralism, galvanized the continent. European leaders, often divided by domestic politics, found common ground in their opposition to Trump's agenda. The old divisions, which had often hampered European integration, seemed to melt away. Suddenly, the need for a strong and united Europe was no longer a theoretical debate. It was an urgent necessity. From Paris to Berlin, from Rome to Madrid, there was a growing recognition that Europe had to take its destiny into its own hands. The era of strategic dependence on the United States was over. The Transatlantic Alliance, the cornerstone of European security for generations, began to show signs of strain. Trump's America First agenda, with its emphasis on transactional relationships, sat uncomfortably with Europe's more multilateral worldview. His disdain for NATO, which he had previously described as obsolete, further eroded trust in Washington. Trade disputes added fuel to the fire. Trump's imposition of tariffs on European goods, coupled with his withdrawal from key international agreements, created an atmosphere of distrust and animosity. The once unthinkable scenario of a trade war between the United States and Europe suddenly seemed all too real. The personal chemistry between Trump and European leaders was also noticeably chilly. Gone were the days of cordial summits and shared pronouncements of unity. In their place were awkward encounters and thinly veiled criticisms. The transatlantic relationship, once characterized by close cooperation and mutual respect, had become strained and transactional. The consequences of this rift were felt far beyond the corridors of power, impacting everything from trade and investment to cultural exchanges and people-to-people contacts. Trump's economic policies sent shockwaves through the global economy, and Europe was not immune. His protectionist measures, including tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, disrupted supply chains and raised costs for European businesses. The threat of a full-blown trade war loomed large, casting a shadow over the continent's economic prospects. In response, Europe took steps to shield its industries and diversify its trading partners. The European Union, often criticized for its bureaucratic sluggishness, showed unexpected agility in forging new trade deals with countries like Japan and Canada. These agreements, while not a complete substitute for the transatlantic trade relationship, sent a clear signal that Europe was prepared to go it alone if necessary. The trade tensions also served as a catalyst for greater economic integration within Europe. The need to present a united front in the face of American pressure gave new impetus to efforts to deepen the single market and strengthen the euro. The crisis, it seemed, had a silver lining. It was forcing Europe to address long-standing weaknesses and become more economically resilient. Trump's skepticism of NATO, which he had repeatedly questioned the relevance of, sent shockwaves through the alliance. His demands for increased defense spending by European members, while not unreasonable in themselves, were often delivered in a manner that alienated rather than persuaded. The uncertainty surrounding the US commitment to NATO prompted European leaders to reassess their defense posture. Germany, long reluctant to embrace a more assertive military role, announced plans to increase its defense budget and modernize its armed forces. France, which had long championed the idea of European strategic autonomy, saw its arguments gain new traction. The push for greater European defense cooperation gained momentum. The European Union launched initiatives to boost defense research and development and to create a more integrated European defense industry. While a fully fledged European army remained a distant prospect, the idea of Europe taking greater responsibility for its own security was gaining ground.